What starts here changes the world. I have a few suggestions that may help you on your way to a better world. And while these lessons were learned during my time in the military, I can assure you that it matters not whether you ever served a day in uniform. It matters not your gender, your ethnic or religious background, your orientation, or your social status. Our struggles in this world are similar, and the lessons to overcome those struggles and to move forward, changing ourselves and changing the world around us, will apply equally to all. So here are the 10 lessons I learned from basic SEAL training that hopefully will be of value to you as you move forward in life. Every morning in SEAL training, my instructors, who at the time were all Vietnam veterans, would show up in my barracks room, and the first thing they'd do was inspect my bed. If you did it right, the corners would be square, the covers would be pulled tight, the pillow centered just under the headboard, and the extra blanket folded neatly at the foot of the rack. It was a simple task, mundane at best, but every morning we were required to make our bed to perfection. It seemed a little ridiculous at the time, particularly in light of the fact that we were aspiring to be real warriors, tough, battle-hardened SEALs. But the wisdom of this simple act has been proven to me many times over. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. So if you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. During SEAL training, the students are all broken down into boat crews. Each crew is 7 students, 3 on each side of a small rubber boat, and 1 coxswain to help guide the dinghy. Every day, your boat crew forms up on the beach and is instructed to get through the surf zone and paddle several miles down the coast. In the winter, the surf off San Diego can get to be 8 to 10 feet high, and it is exceedingly difficult to paddle through the plunging surf unless everyone digs in. Every paddle must be synchronized to the stroke count of the coxswain. Everyone must exert equal effort, or the boat will turn against the wave and be unceremoniously dumped back on the beach. For the boat to make it to its destination, everyone must paddle. You can't change the world alone. You will need some help. And to truly get from your starting point to your destination takes friends, colleagues, the goodwill of strangers, and a strong coxswain to guide you. If you want to change the world, find someone to help you paddle. Over a few weeks of difficult training, my SEAL class, which started with 150 men, was down to just 42. There were now 6 boat crews of 7 men each. I was in the boat with the tall guys, but the best boat crew we had was made up of the little guys, the Munchkin crew, we called them. No one was over 5'5". The Munchkin boat crew had 1 American Indian, 1 African American, 1 Polish American, 1 Greek American, 1 Italian American, and 2 tough kids from the Midwest. They out-paddled, outran, and outswam all the other boat crews. The big men in the other boat crews would always make good-natured fun of the tiny little flippers the Munchkins put on their tiny little feet prior to every swim. But somehow these little guys from every corner of the nation and the world always had the last laugh, swimming faster than everyone and reaching the shore long before the rest of us. SEAL training was a great equalizer. Nothing mattered but your will to succeed, not your color, not your ethnic background, not your education, not your social status. If you want to change the world, measure a person by the size of their heart, not by the size of their flippers.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the CARES Project. We're back with the second part of the province to the north as Canada is slowly but surely moving towards totalitarianism. And anybody who thinks otherwise is absolutely out of their minds. And anything you want to say before we start getting into it? Okay, just for a refresher, we're going to just bring this back to let people know where we left off.
In December 2019, we performed a remote audit, forensic examination of the Wuhan Institute of Virology and found synthetic biology experiments with the Nipah virus. As the chart shows, they had created a cloning vector with a virus the U.S. CDC defines as bioterrorism agent. Nipah virus is one of the deadliest on the planet with a greater than 60% lethality. Why were they conducting this experiment? I do not know. But a laboratory-acquired infection with this virus, if it became airborne, would make COVID-19 look like a walk in the park. The work of this committee is critical to protecting the American people as well as the people of all countries from future pandemics, man-made or natural. If we now fail to act with the knowledge we have, history will judge us poorly. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
So, yes, that was the same Bangladesh strain of Nipah virus that went from the National Microbiology Laboratory in Winnipeg and somehow ended up in China. And then it was in the genetic profile. And no one is explaining this whatsoever. And so we're going to go and listen to a couple of clips here. Actually, we'll bring this up just so that people can get this in mind, to keep in mind what kind of government we have here in Canada, and that outgoing Chrystia Freeland, who was the finance minister. Everybody knows what's up with Chrystia Freeland, so we're going to let this woman talk a little bit of Chrystia Freeland.
Meet Chrystia Freeland, granddaughter of Ukrainian Nazi collaborator. She just moved from Canada, where she was Trudeau's deputy prime minister and Mark Carney's special representative to Ukraine, assigned to keep the war going. She's now Zelensky's special economic advisor. And what's her job? Continue the war going, loot Ukrainian assets, pay the banks. Same playbook her grandfather would recognize.
So we got Nazis, and then our cabinet minister, one of our MPs, leaves. First of all, goes and takes a job as the advisor, but says she's going to stick around. Then people get angry, so she decides to step down and then go to a foreign country. Who was your allegiance to? Right? Certainly not Canada. I've never heard of a person in a cabinet, federal government position, in a cabinet position that resigns to go work as an advisor in an unpaid position in another country while they're in government. Like, let that one sink into your heads. And the fact that the Canadian people are just allowing this to happen, you think that the government's going to ever stop doing it when you're just going to sit there and allow them to slap this stuff in your face? No. No. And no. Canadian people are just bending over and taking up the hind parts. This is really what's happening. Let's go a little further, and we're going to listen to some of what Carney is doing from another Canadian dude here. I'm going to talk a little bit about Carney. Just get this here. Oh yeah, we'll get this up here.
It's important to understand here that he's not just bringing in foreign investment like the U.S. is. So the U.S. is like, bring your money here or tariffs exist. So that's a financial leverage move. So you get Apple, you get Samsung, you name the company, they're now doing more production in the States. In fact, they're leaving Canada like Stellantis to go down to the U.S. and build big production facilities there. So they own the means of production already. They're buying resources from America and from other places around the world, bringing them in there. They're hiring employees there, and they're increasing GDP and having more output and more supply in the economy. So overall, that's a good way to operate your country. What we're doing here is we're bringing in money and we're selling our natural resources. We're selling our assets. We're selling oil. We're selling gas. We're selling critical minerals. We're selling the supply chains. We're selling expansion. We're tying our energy production to other governments' industrial needs. We're selling AI. We're selling IT. We're selling data centers. If you own our natural resources, or at least a portion thereof, and can control supply chains and production volumes, that dramatically changes our economic output and our potential here. So this is insane. He's literally just selling the country to foreign buyers. And the example that I like to use is this is like the 407 on steroids. So for people that don't know, the 407 is a toll highway in Ontario. It was built primarily with government money, then sold for pennies on the dollar, and now foreign companies make tons of money off of the tolls they collect all the time. It's the same bullshit. It makes no sense. All it is Carney having basically some ribbon cutting ceremonies, having a few short-term jobs, and him taking some PR wins. It's totally Canada.
These are Canadians?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
So you're putting in the hard labor. Canada are footing the bill to build these companies and build all this infrastructure. Then it's handed over to somebody else for nothing.
Yeah.
You know what that makes you?
Slave.
Exactly. Like, people want to sit down and fight about all that stuff in the past while everybody's being made a slave right now.
Yeah.
Right here, right now. And then the way that they're getting up and killing their neighbors and strangling them, they're not giving the same vitriol towards the government, because if they did, the government wouldn't want to be acting this way.
Yeah.
Right? But because the people, they're just bending over, right? Nobody's going to do anything about it. People are going to be like, whatever. Now we're going to... This is just, yeah. Anyway, we'll continue. We'll continue. We're going to look at this clip here, because this is how brazen the Canadian government is, and they know that nobody's going to do anything, and they look at the entire population full of cucks, and when people want to do things, the population actually attacks them. So they're like, well, why do we need to do anything? We'll just let them kill each other.
Yeah.
Oh. Don't do that. All right. So let's get back to it.
Ma'am, you had just mentioned, and I'm glad you did, the rule of law. And you agree with me that the rule of law applies to you, and it applies to the executive and the elected executive of the government of Canada.
Yes.
So what are you looking for? Are you looking that the government without warrants is allowed just to go and look into metadata?
No, that's what I just said to you.
Yeah, so
I just said to you
here's
that
the
we
thing.
should not be doing that, and so we have to find a legal framework for it. We are actually violently agreeing.
Okay, well, that's good. So, and we agree that we should follow legal frameworks.
We should, and I believe there is a gap in the legal framework.
You are not in the business, or your department is not supposed to be in the business of actually collecting intelligence yourself.
We don't collect intelligence ourselves. We don't collect intelligence ourselves.
Here you go, yes or no. Has Parliament, via statute, given you, the National Security Advisor and the Privy Council, authority to collect and then analyze intelligence?
That no, Parliament hasn't given it authority, but it exists and it continues.
Oh, yeah.
Of course it's a woman.
Yes.
Of course it's a woman.
Flippantly admitting that they're
Committing crime.
gathering and taking intelligence when they have no business doing this.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, and this is one of the reasons why let's bring this up, because I mean, people really need to have this stuff put together in front of their faces. And they're just telling you what they're doing, and because they know that there's so many people that are cucking out in Canada, that nobody's going to do anything. Well, listen to this guy. He's going to tell you what Carney's doing.
You won't believe what Mark Carney tried to hide from Canadians. Buried within Carney's massive 700-page budget bill is a measure that gives cabinet ministers wide discretion to exempt any entity from any federal law on the books, except the criminal code, for up to 6 years. So what this means is that any minister in Mark Carney's government could give any individual or corporation the ability to bypass virtually any federal law. The scope that a minister would have to exempt an individual or corporation from federal laws is extremely broad. The minister only needs to claim that an exemption would encourage innovation, competitiveness, or economic growth, and is in the public interest. That could mean just about anything. So take a big corporation bidding on a federal project. Under these powers, if a minister determined that the project would facilitate jobs and economic growth, the minister could decide, for example, to exempt the corporation from the federal government's procurement and contracting rules and award a sole source contract to that corporation, bypassing the bidding process. What sorts of situations could that be? Well, it could mean that Brookfield could be exempted from complying with the Lobbying Act, from having to report all the times that they're lobbying. It's pretty obvious that the exercise of these wide powers could open the floodgates to all kinds of conflicts of interest and corruption. And to top it off, a minister would have wide discretion to keep the public in the dark about having granted an exemption. A minister could hide the scope, the particulars, and even the name of the individual or corporation that the exemption was granted to if the minister determined that it was in the interest of protecting so-called confidential or personal information. So not only will ministers have wide and unprecedented power to exempt individuals and corporations from laws and regulations without any checks and balances, they also have wide discretion to do it secretly, behind closed doors, without any level of transparency. And speaking of a lack of transparency, there has been absolutely no transparency surrounding the introduction of these new powers. There was no announcement or press release. There hasn't been so much as a whisper from anyone in Carney's government about these new powers. Instead, they were buried in a massive budget bill. Clearly, Mark Carney was hoping that no one would take notice and that they would be able to sneak these new powers through without any public scrutiny. We've seen this movie before from these Liberals. In fact, the Liberals did exactly the same thing when they buried a deferred prosecution agreement regime in the 2018 budget bill. Within weeks of the passage of the 2018 budget bill, Justin Trudeau put pressure on his Attorney General, Jody Wilson-Raybould, to drop the bribery case against SNC-Lavalin with a deferred prosecution agreement. It was all by design. The deferred prosecution agreement regime was snuck into the budget bill for the corrupt purpose of giving a get-out-of-jail-free card to SNC-Lavalin, which of course had deep ties to Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party. So why does Mark Carney want to give his ministers the power to exempt individuals and corporations from the law? We don't know, but something is clearly going on. It doesn't pass the smell test. That's why I've introduced a motion at the Ethics Committee. I would like to put on notice the following motion: to launch an investigation into Mark Carney's government to get to the bottom of what amounts to an outrageous abuse of power, sneaking this measure into a budget bill and hoping that no one would notice, a measure that grants sweeping new powers that will undermine the rule of law and open the door to all manner of abuse and corruption. We need to get to the bottom of this. Mark Carney has a lot of explaining to do.
So you can exempt anybody from any law, shield people from knowing actually who they're exempting from the law. You know what that sounds like to me? That sounds like a criminal cartel that is running the government. They're wanting no accountability, no liability, no prosecution for them to do whatever they want, and then they justify it with whatever. And you know what the people are doing? They're going to sit down and they're taking it and they're laughing and rubbing it in your face. But let's just get a little reminder of, since he made that trip to China, what kinds of companies and so forth might he want to hide and not get liability for?
I want to be very clear. We can prove that Every federal government, from Mr. Mulroney to Mr. Trudeau, have been compromised by agents of the Communist China. Every government were informed at one point or another. Every government choose to ignore CSIS warning either by negligence, self-interest, or partisanship. Every government were infiltrated by agents of influence acting on behalf of the Chinese government, and we knew who they were.
Anybody want to start to guess on what companies he's going to start exempting and they're going to start hiding and start doing shade with? Well, what? Go ahead.
No.
Right? This is the country that we're living in. And I'm going to play a clip here and listen to this. This people need to understand. Because Canada is doing things that, like you said, with the Nipah virus and all that stuff, Canada are doing things that countries like Ukraine got invaded for. Right? Like, I mean, you can't keep doing these kinds of things and expect no consequences. But let's listen to, there's a couple of guests on the War Room for Steve Bannon, so let's listen to what they have to say.
How serious is this situation in Canada, given the Prime Minister's kowtow to the Chinese Communist Party on global television, sir?
Steve, I think this is just huge. This will be one of the big issues that the president's going to have to deal with in the days and weeks ahead. Look, during the Cold War, the Department of Defense, or now the Department of War, had plans for the invasion of Canada. Because during the Cold War, if we somehow lost Alaska and Canada to the Soviet Union, we from the United States were going to have to invade Canada and take them back, because it would be intolerable to have a foreign power right above our northern border, not merely because of the ideas of the Monroe Doctrine, but just commonsensically, that provides us with top cover defense. Alaska today is our main top cover military base to defend the United States. Canada is right there as well. So when we look at what Carney is saying here, he is making, he says, a strategic partnership with a known enemy of the United States. May of 2019, they declared a people's war, Communist China did, against the United States. They've never repealed that. And so Carney, who knows that, has made a strategic partnership with an enemy nation of the United States. Not only does that affect NORAD, but they're a member of the Five Eyes intelligence cooperation. And so we're going to have to reevaluate that Five Eyes relationship with Canada today, not next week, not next month. Today, we're going to have to make a reevaluation of that. We need to evaluate today whether NORAD is secure and whether we're going to be able to rely on Canada at all. What if Canada, under this strategic partnership, allows Chinese troops to operate on Canadian soil in some kind of BS, relationship building exercise? This is fundamentally intolerable for there to be a strategic partnership. Let me say, Steve, I'm concerned that the Chinese and the Canadians also just don't think we're serious about what we're doing here. The president is absolutely dead serious. But back to our earlier conversation about illegal immigration, during those Biden years, 200,000 Chinese men of military age, what appear to be special forces, came across our border. What are we doing today to root out those 200,000 Chinese nationals, which appear to be special forces, who are operating here in the United States? And I would tell you, we don't have efforts going on adequately to make that a reality. The Chinese know this, and they may think we're not serious. The Canadians know this, and they may think we're not serious. Actions need to be taken by President Trump to demonstrate just how serious we are about both the immigration problem and how we're dealing with Communist China.
I mean, people can say what they want, but you can't piss around and do things like that and expect nothing to happen. This is where people don't understand consequences. Like he said, they had a plan in the 50s from the Cold War that if they ever lost Alaska and Canada, that they had a plan to go ahead and take it back. And when he mentioned Chinese troops operating Canadian soil, they already did. Right? I mean, they were sending the Nipah virus over to Wuhan that it ended up showing up.
During the pandemic, Trudeau set up military bases for us to train Chinese military on Canadian soil.
Yeah, so they had troops here.
Cooked.
People knew about it. I mean, they said
it publicly.
They sent the Nipah virus, the Bangladesh strain, and it showed up, and it was put out in the genetic profile. Right? So if people are watching this, share it, because people need to understand. And I'll just put this up so that people can see it, because this book, COVID-19 and Negligent Engineering Practices, Will This Kill People? This is the documentation that they strapped me to a table and drugged me against my will for. And that would have, let's just put it up there. That would have shut down the pandemic response. And every single health agency, public health agency in Canada, the CDC, the NIH, the NIAD, they were all aware of the engineering controls, and they all did it wrong. They all ignored it. And I even looked at the lessons learned from the COVID Selects Committee. You know what they missed? Engineering controls. Funny how that is. You know what happens if the systematic failure of engineering controls are done in a pandemic response? That's criminal liability. There's no which way. It doesn't matter if it's incompetence or deliberate intent. It's still criminal, and you're cooked. There's no excuse for them either, because all of those agencies all have their hands involved in dealing with BSL-4 labs. That they understand the importance of engineering controls and have engineers in those divisions, and some of them are involved in overseeing construction and conducting research. And they didn't put it out to any facilities, didn't make them aware of proper engineering controls to the public. That's called being cooked. And then, knowing that any pathogen like Nipah virus, like they said, if it got into the air, they know it spreads through aerosols. And guess what they found? And they published. That's a whole lot of crime. Right? That's a whole lot of crime. And every people that have been going around and hindering this, you're agents of China. You're agents of the CCP. Whether you are directly or indirectly, it don't matter, because the effect is that you're working on behalf of the Chinese government, and you're an enemy to the United States, and you're an enemy to Canada or the Canadian people. And so you're cooked. And at that point, whatever you get, I don't care. Do not care, because you should not be helping people like the Chinese go ahead and destroy your country. That makes you a traitor. And people understand what happens to traitors. We will stop for a break so that if anybody wants to support the CARES Project, you can go to mypillow.com/the CARES Project, call 800-845-2942. Use the promo code CARES so you can see what's there in the ticker. We have a Get, Send, Go donor box. It's in the ticker. Watch the video. Support the fight against human trafficking.
Hello friends, my name is Kaysha and I'm a proud member of the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan. And I'm also a survivor of human trafficking. My trafficking began in Saskatchewan, moved into Alberta, and even crossed into the United States. I was stalked, hunted, and ignored by the very systems over the last 5 years that were meant to protect me. This is why, with my father Dale Richardson, we started the CARES Project. This is an Indigenous, survivor-led movement for humanity dedicated to exposing trafficking. government corruption, and holding institutions accountable. One of the most powerful tools that we are using is the petitions for redress of grievances. These are lawful constitutional actions rooted in Canadian and U.S. law, and in treaties that tie us together across provinces, across states, and even across borders. These petitions are precedent-setting. They create a binding record. They demand accountability while representing reconciliation in action. Indigenous and non-Indigenous people working side by side to preserve liberty for all. But we cannot do this alone. We need your help to keep this movement alive, to raise awareness and to build a legacy of justice for Indigenous women, for trafficking survivors, and for families everywhere. Thank you. Please stand with us. Your support makes this work possible. Together we can restore justice, heal families, and defend freedom. And I will close with my favorite quote. The greatest want of the world is the want of men. Men who cannot be bought or sold. Men who in their inmost souls are true and honest. Men who do not fear to call sin by its right name. Men whose conscience is as true to duty as the needle to the pole. And men who will stand for the right, though the heavens may fall. Thank you.
Yeah. And so yeah, we're gonna pick it up here. We're gonna look at what the Canadian media, how their reaction is when Trump started to talk about Greenland for national security reasons. And yeah, we'll just roll it. You'll see how they operate.
He was saying that America needed Greenland. Greenland rejected Trump's comments once again over the weekend. So where does it stop? There are now global concerns about Trump's ambitions.
Look, Venezuela was the blueprint. The president actually went in, kidnapped a sovereign leader, and did it with very little outcry from the international community. We already know that the Pentagon has been drawing up plans for a military takeover of Greenland. The president, in addition, has said he would take Canada by economic force. Given the fact that he now has his hands on the largest oil reserves in the world, and we know that Canada refines oil very similar to Venezuela, I think that does now take a lot of leverage away from Canada, which means I think Donald Trump his plan for economic takeover of Canada is coming into clearer picture. As we look at Greenland, however, I think given what we saw play out in Venezuela, the president is now more emboldened and not less to actually follow through with a military takeover, because we haven't heard much from the international community, and I doubt even NATO allies would actually push back if, in fact, that's what the Trump administration decided to do.
Eric Ham is CTV.
Yeah, they're like, oh, what's gonna happen? He always like, they're gonna use economic force against Canada. Keep pushing. Like, I mean, this is
they cut off all the entry points by taking Venezuela and Greenland. Like that's so strategically placed.
Yes.
There's no way for them to come in from the side door.
Yes.
So if they try to pull anything, they're just gonna die.
And they'll just assert their dominance over the Canadian Arctic. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Say no?
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, good luck.
Right? Go right ahead and try.
Yeah.
Like, people are like, oh, farce, this and that. I'm like, man, I said if they really wanted to, they could turn Canada into a parking lot.
Yeah, they could.
They could.
Yeah.
They really could.
Yeah, they could.
You can only go so far before the hammer comes down.
Yeah.
And this is what people have to understand. You can't keep doing this infinitely and expect nothing to happen. Right? And let's pull up a quote here in a clip here so that we can kind of listen to Steve Bannon make it very clear on what they're talking about with the Arctic. Where is he here? Yeah.
Folks, this is going to be a big deal. Number one, I believe Canada is our number one or Mexico and Canada are our two biggest trading partners. The situation in Canada is big. As I said, they scuppered the first round of real serious trade talks. You've got this situation with national security. All the NORAD system really is predicated upon, a huge amount of that is predicated upon the sites in Canada. Remember, this is why the Arctic is going to be such a, what I call the great game of the 21st century. Who controls the Arctic is going to have a major ability to control the world. And the Chinese Communist Party know this. They're evil, but they're not dumb. And they're quite strategic, as you've seen how we're having to roll them back from every choke point in the world. You know, the Chinese Communist Party is they're the first to kind of take both Mackinder's control the pivot of the center of the Eurasian landmass, the heart of the world island, also to take on the British Empire's Mahanian strategy. This is what they've done with One Belt, One Road, to try to do both simultaneously.
Yeah, NORAD. You think that the Americans are going to just allow China to put their infrastructure and come in and start accessing that? You're out of your skull. You look at what they said. What happened when they went into Venezuela? What did anybody say? Nothing.
Yeah. The government gave him up.
Everybody
His own
was just
government
like,
turned on him and gave him up to the Trump administration.
yeah. Nobody said a word.
They don't want to die.
No. They know that they could turn your country into a parking lot. And even China and Russia, you think that they want to have an all-out war with the United States? No. Unless they can completely cripple the United States, they do not want to go on war with the United States.
Yeah.
Because guess what? Even if they ganged up with them, nobody's going to win, and they can push a button and everybody's dead. Right?
Yeah.
This is where people don't understand. They don't understand. They do not understand. And where people are going to start learning lessons, because Canada's going to pay the price. The longer that we sit down and allow these guys to just run roughshod in our country, we're going to pay the consequences, because we are responsible for that government. We are 100% responsible. And yes, we'll bring back some Canadian guys to talk a little bit more about what the people are just throwing in our faces and rubbing our noses in the fact that they just engineered the destruction of our society.
Governments worldwide are finally admitting that they engineered the downfall of our societies. A recent U.S. report confirms what so-called conspiracy theorists have said all along. COVID likely came from a lab incident involving dangerous, taxpayer-funded research. They also went on to admit that the vaccines were recklessly rushed, skipping proper safety trials and led to significant harms, and said that schools were unscientifically closed, causing unprecedented learning loss and psychological damage to children. This confession by the U.S. comes just weeks after the Canadian government released a report detailing how our top security biolabs sent deadly pathogens to China's military to be used in the dangerous gain-of-function research, which eventually led to the COVID-19 pandemic. Meanwhile, across the ocean, British leader Keir Starmer admitted that Western nations had been running an open borders experiment. Mass migration wasn't some unavoidable crisis, it was a deliberate decision by world leaders. This isn't about governments failing to respond to unforeseen problems. It's about deliberate actions, one crime against humanity after another. In the past 5 years, they've funded and engaged in risky bioweapons research involving deadly pathogens with a hostile communist nation. They enacted global tyranny under the guise of public health, only for all-cause mortality to skyrocket after coercing the public into taking experimental pharmaceutical products. They pushed millions into poverty, crushed small businesses, expanded bureaucracy, and facilitated the largest upward wealth transfer in human history. They launched mass psyops to scapegoat and gaslight anyone who dared to dissent, tearing apart friends, families, and communities in the process. Framing these actions as mere incompetence or well-intentioned mistakes is an insult to the truth. Governments and transnational corporations amassed unimaginable amounts of wealth and power during a mass casualty event they caused. Anything less than international trials for these psychopaths is a mockery of justice. We cannot let those who lied, thieved, and tyrannized their way into societal destruction to bury their immense guilt in sanitized reports, only to continue ruling over us while collecting taxpayer-funded salaries. It's time we see real accountability. No more empty reports, no more political doublespeak. It's time we learn what justice looks like.
I mean, let me just remind people of where it begins. There we go. The engineering.
Not
That
on the
is
screen.
the criminal.
It's not on the screen.
Sure it is.
Oh.
It's COVID-19 and negligent engineering practices. Will this kill people? This is what I was going to use to prevent people from businesses from shutting down. After they came and they wiped out small business, who do you think was trying to protect small business and actually had the science backing up to me? Because if you hauled me into court and hauled that information into court, what was the government going to say? Go ahead. I called the Association of Professional Engineers of Geoscientists in Saskatchewan and said, yeah, go ahead, bring your 5 best engineers. Let's have this conversation in public. Crickets. Why? Because they would. There's no way they could sit down and justify what they did. They couldn't. Right? I got destroyed, lost everything. My daughter's destroyed. My little daughter, I haven't seen her for almost 5.5 years. I don't even know what she looks like. She'd be alive or dead for all I know. Because why? I didn't want anybody else to die. I didn't want people's businesses to shut down. I didn't want people to lose the clothes off their backs. And then what happened? Right? Oh, he's grifting off of treason. Are you nuts? I understand consequences. I've had consequences that I didn't even deserve. I've had bad consequences in life. I understand that when certain things carry certain actions, and those kinds of things, they carry bad consequences. Look at history. We need justice. We can't have, like you said, we cannot have these people ruling over us. We cannot allow them to get what's going on. I saw a post by Royce White. He's running for Senate in Minnesota. And he said, you get the government you deserve. You're absolutely right. Because the people are the ones who are allowing this thing to continue. If the government had their way and they could get away with putting us in the gulags, we would already be there. We're not. We can't sit there and take this anymore. We cannot. Because every time we sit down and say, oh, I can't do it, we're saying, yes, give us more of what you're giving us. Especially the men. You need to get up and do something. There's no more excuses. And if you can't get up in the front lines, then you need to start supporting the people that are there. Because at the end of the day, if all those people are in the front lines, they fall down, guess what you got? Nothing. And if you're too much of a coward to do something and you're unprepared, what's going to happen? You think you're going to just rise to the occasion when you don't know whether you're coming or you're going? You're not. It's not the way it works. Right? Anyway, I'm going to play another clip here. This is just, people need to get this through their heads. I don't care what you think of people, but you have to understand there are consequences for actions. And you, like, sending what they call a terrorism, like a bioterrorist pathogen, and had it to the Chinese, and then that same pathogen is released. There's no going back from that. And anybody who wants to sit down and give them grace for that, you're a terrorist too. You want to support and advocate terrorism? Then you should get the penalties for that. We need rule of law in this country, and it needs to start with the people in government that did this. Let's play this clip.
Canada is supposed to be one of our best allies. What is going on with this kowtow of Carney to the CCP?
Well, thanks for having me on, Steve. Yeah, this is a massive development, really, for Canada, for Canadian relations with China, which have been rocky for quite a few years under Justin Trudeau, and now with who I call China Carney, Mark Carney, definitely changing. And this is completely a message to the Trump administration. It's being sold basically as agricultural deal, a green deal with China being able to send in about just under 50,000 electric vehicles to Canada per year, most of them being very, very cheap, under $35,000 Canadian, which in American money is obviously much less. But there's much far deeper things going on here in terms of what the message is, because the message right now to President Trump is we can always go somewhere else. But at the same time, that also means that China is extending its sphere of influence even deeper into North America than previously. What China is looking to do, in my opinion, is really to get a foothold in North America and Canada, much like it has in other places, like in Africa. So you have all these EVs that are going to be sold. I think this is a big thing, because a lot of Canada really doesn't have the infrastructure for EVs, especially in rural communities. And a lot of Canada, obviously, is a huge country. And so that infrastructure is going to need to be built. And so who better to build that for Canada than the Chinese, meaning that they have an even deeper foothold within Canada itself, which they already do. We've had multiple scandals in Canada of Chinese election influence. The Canadian Secret Intelligence Service, our domestic and foreign intelligence service, found that they interfered in 2 elections in Canadian history very recently, I believe in 2021. And so Chinese influence here is already huge. And now I think Carney is just making it official by going to Beijing and making this deal with President Xi Jinping.
People have to pay attention. And talking and stuff on social media, it ain't going to save you from the consequences. It is not. Like, this is not a game at all. Like, say what you want. Things like this have consequences.
Yeah, when they start grabbing people to string them up for Nuremberg trials, your podcast and your views and your clicks and your paid bot followers are not gonna save you. Like, nothing that you say or do is going to save you from the consequences of your own actions and your failure to do things and going around destroying the people who are actually trying to help fix the problem. A lot of you are going to F around and find out real quick. And I can't wait. Personally, I can't wait. The way that everybody was watching me going around suffering the last 5.5 years, almost 6 years on the street doing things, I cannot wait to watch my enemies suffer. I'm gonna dance like David. Like how David prayed in his bed, telling God they lay in their bed and they conspire against me, and then ask God to destroy his enemies. I'm waiting at the edge of my seat for God to destroy all of my enemies. I'm waiting for all of you guys to get the consequences from the Nuremberg trials, and whatever the hell Trump is doing, I'm here for all the chaos. I'm living for it. Because you all deserve it. You deserve the worst of it. All of you people, the people that are involved in shutting out this information, they're worse than us. They're worse than any of us. They're worse than the worst. They are worse than the people who are actually committing the acts of evil. They are facilitating and creating the circumstances for those people to continue the evil. So yeah, I personally don't care. I don't care about anyone. I don't care about anything. I'm waiting for consequences to roll out, and your stupid freaking followers online are not going to save you. You sick freaks, all of you that I met the last couple of years. Good luck to you, because even if I die tomorrow, consequences will still come to you because you can't run from them. Not anymore.
I talked to Chris Carver, and I listened to what he was saying, and I could sit down and see in his case, I could see that happening in so many other cases. And these boys went ahead and spent a lot of time in jail.
Yeah.
They didn't have to.
Everybody.
They didn't have to. They had their lives destroyed, their families destroyed. I look at all these people, and I look at all these people's lives that are being destroyed that could have been prevented.
People's kids were murdered.
And people, because they felt bad, would allow people to go and have their lives destroyed. What happens when all of this comes out, and the people that are sitting next to you are like, my family's dead because of you?
Everyone online that went around hunting us down and hunting other people down, like the damn Chris Wedding, is that what his name is?
Yeah.
Chris Wedding, that guy who's...
Or was it Ryan Wedding?
Ryan Wedding, whatever his name. The Pablo Escobar of Canada, who is running the multi-billion-dollar drug cartel, who went around hunting down whistleblowers, and they're using online platform to do it, and posted people so that people would go to where they are and kill them. That's what people were doing online to people, what people were doing to me. Same kind of stuff. They were doing that to loads of people. Every single person that was going around trying to destroy people who were actually solving the problem, coming together to kill people who were trying to solve the problem. Bro, all of you gotta go. Every single one of you.
The amount of people that I know right now that the courts have taken their children and placed them with pedophiles, that are protecting pedophiles, that are punishing people who are trying to keep their children from pedophiles. All of these people, this is what you're protecting. You're protecting pedophiles.
People in the States worked with a convicted pedophile to lure me into her home. People are working with convicted pedophiles, and people, because of their feelings, are going along with it. You people that do this filth are sick. Any one of you people involved in this stuff, I don't care. I don't care.
People forget what Jim Ferguson was reporting about the Labour Party in the UK and how many pedophiles. Wait till they start hauling out the pedophiles over here in North America.
Yeah.
Then people are going to start to understand and realize how many of these people in the judicial system, how many pedophiles that they have in all these other places. Because if you think that this country isn't filled with pedophiles, I listen to what a guy's talking about. Oh, well, there was some sexual abuse at the residential schools, but there wasn't only this amount of people got charged. I said, all they need is opportunity, and it's happening. Because if you have an opportunity for that to happen, it's happening. And I said, if you don't think that they were protecting pedophiles for a long time, you're deceiving yourself, because look at how they're now rubbing the grooming into your schools, which is facilitating the sexual exploitation and financial exploitation of children. That is a trafficking-related offense. And they're doing this flippantly in our faces with your tax dollars. Yeah. And you sit down and take it because it's the government. That's our problem. People say, oh, it's the government. Oh, okay, let me bend over and I'll pull my pants down to my ankles for you. We need to stop doing that. You have to understand that our government, is filled with organized crime.
And
Go ahead.
And when it comes down to the trials and when people actually start getting investigated, you can't say, oh, well, I didn't listen to him because he was a nigger. I didn't listen to his treason reporter's engineering report because he was a nigger, because he's a low IQ.
Watch the
Sorry. Because he's low IQ sub-Saharan. No, that's not going to save you either.
It doesn't matter what anybody's. I don't care what anybody's reason is. If you didn't know, don't do anything. Say I don't know. That's fine. I don't care. But all the people that did this, I watch all the people's lives that were destroyed, and the people that were protecting the government. You're sick.
Yeah.
You're sick. Because all the people that went ahead and did things, I was just doing my job, isn't going to save you. Because you know who you have to face? The people whose loved ones are destroyed.
And
the people
dead.
whose kids got
Literally
trafficked. And all these things. And good luck with that. Because, I mean, nobody who helped these people, the people in government, all these people, nobody's going to have mercy on them. Nobody's going to care. The people in the media that shut this down and all of this for all the people. Remember, in Nuremberg, the media didn't escape. Anyway, this is where we're at.
Yeah, they didn't.
We go to the CARES project. We have an action plan because we are teaching people to go and use the law and everything that we have to protect our rights while we still have a chance. Rather than sitting down going, oh, I can't do anything. We'll get up and do something, because if you don't, you're watching Carney sell us out to China. He is deconstructing this economy so that we're going to be in poverty, because if we're in poverty, guess what? We're slaves to the government, because if you can't get bread and the only place to get is the government, well, they're like, you don't do it, too bad, you're dead. Anyway, I'm done right now. So please, like, subscribe, share. I'm going to close with a prayer, and I'll give you your final thoughts, and we will be done for the day. Anyway, Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your love, grace, and mercy. We thank you for the hope you've given us this day. Open our hearts and minds to your will. And Father, I ask of you this day to help the men, that we would humble ourselves before God. And Lord, give ourselves over to you, that you can teach us and lead us and guide us. And help us to work with the women to rebuild our families, our churches, our community, our nation, to protect the children from this evil wickedness, is my prayer. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Yeah, thanks for the prayer as always. Yeah, I don't need to do anything personally. Like my dad said, people are gonna have consequences because, you know, the people who lost their family, or they were trafficked, or the kids were killed and all that stuff. You guys have them to deal with. Honestly, I don't care about anything or anyone anymore. I'm waiting for consequences to roll out, and I'm very much looking forward to it. I hope every single one of you that were involved in this filth gets the highest consequence of the law possible, because that's the only way to solve this problem. The only way to deal with this evil. Like, this is the worst evil imaginable. And I don't care anymore. I really don't. So anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in to the stream. For the ones who are just going to steal our content, good luck to you. You can't replicate it anyways. But if you're here, you might as well share it. So yeah, we'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for tuning in.